Okay. Well, hello, friends. Thanks for joining us again tonight. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Billy Sutton, and I'm with Delmarva Feed. I handle the nutrition and formulations. I work here. Been here nearly 14 years, and Delmarva Feed has been open for about 20 years. Primarily formulate and manufacture feeds for dairy, beef, equine, pigs, sheep, goats, and poultry. And we use as much local grain as we possibly can. So our service area currently covers the entire eastern shore of Maryland, all of Delaware, southeastern Pennsylvania, and southern New Jersey. So I want to thank you all for tuning in tonight. And I want to thank Maury for joining us, and Zach behind the scenes, making sure everything goes smoothly. And I guess with that, we'll turn it over to Maury with Show-Rite to tell us all about sheep and lambs tonight.
Sounds good, Billy. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. As Billy said, my name is Maury Morris, and I come to you from the Show-Rite team. I am considered a multi-species product specialist. So you'll see at the bottom there, I did include my information, my cell phone number, as well as my email address. And I also included our sheep specialist. Unfortunately, Cooper wasn't able to make it with us tonight. They're gearing up for the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. So he's a little preoccupied, but I think I'm funner to listen to anyways. So we're going to get through this information and have a good time this evening. But I did want you to have access to Cooper as well. Cooper's been an integral part for the Show-Rite team in terms of creating a lot of these sheep products and helping us find so much success on the lamb side of things. So I wanted you to be able to have his phone number and email in case you felt the need to reach out to him. But you're always welcome to holler my way as well. So first off, want to thank Delmarva Feed for putting this on. You know, it's really valuable when a resource like them can offer you learning opportunities like this and bring these to you. So definitely be sure to thank them next time you're in the store or on the phone with Billy, whatever it may be. Definitely be sure to thank them for providing this for you. Tonight, we are going to cover kind of just the all-encompassing basics of getting to that banner for the show, for the sheep ring and for your sheep project, and hopefully get you squared away so that you feel comfortable as you get your projects home, or maybe you already have them home. You feel comfortable moving forward and know what your next steps are and how to achieve that success or achieve those goals that you've set for yourself. So we'll cover really anything and everything from some selection things to think about before you make that call or make that purchase. We'll talk about what your housing situation should look like at home. We'll go into nutrition and daily care, and then round out with some, tweaking thing, how to tweak your animal, like with exercise and supplements, and even some leg wool care and how to get that shag growing. So we're going to cover lots of things, but feel free to make this conversational tonight by typing in your questions. There's a section at the top or bottom of your screen that'll say Q&A. That's a great place for you to type in your questions, and then I can answer verbally or type something back to you as well. The second part, or where you could enter your questions, would be in the chat section too. So don't be shy. There's no silly questions. I will be honest with you. I'm not the sheep expert. Obviously, I told you Cooper was, but I'm pretty multifaceted and to feel 100% comfortable with these sheep. But I guess so you know who you're hearing from, my background a little bit. I grew up on the West Coast, opposite of you guys. I grew up in Oregon showing pigs and horses and livestock judging. And livestock judging took me then to Oklahoma for school. I judged competitively at Oklahoma State University, was on a national champion team there, and graduated in 2015 with an animal science degree. Did a different role, or had a different role coming out of college, but joined Show-Rite just 4 years ago after a couple years of working for a different company. So been with them for, feels like forever now, but saying 4 years doesn't seem that long. But now I moved kind of back west, and I reside in Montana and live on our family ranch. We raise show cattle, commercial cattle, seed stock cattle. So kind of hit all markets, from production to the show side and to breeding stock as well. So that's kind of who you're hearing from tonight. But like I said, I feel totally confident in my sheep abilities. I help lots of families from year to year, from start to finish. So there's no question that, or if you do throw a question at me that throws me for a loop or I don't know how to answer, that's when we can refer to Cooper for sure. But keep those questions coming, keep it conversational, and I hope you'll leave here with all those questions answered tonight, okay? So with that being said, we will roll right into it. Get this PowerPoint going. Okay, so first we want to talk about things to consider before you make your purchase, things that may be overlooked pretty commonly. You know, this is an exciting time making the selection of your animal and of your project for the year. And with that excitement and the anticipation, we do tend to overlook these things. So this is what all of us on the Show-Rite team thoroughly believe in, having, you know, a family meeting or your show team meeting, whoever that support is going to be with you before you go to a sale, before you make your purchase, and discuss things like what you see on the screen. So what level do you want to compete at? That's imperative to set before you go to make your purchase. You have to know where you're trying to get to so that you can make the right purchase or selection in that project to get you there. They have to reflect those same qualities, because, you know, if you're trying to go for the state fair win, you may need obviously a higher caliber animal than you might for your county fair. So just making that clear to your family and being on the same page as everybody who's going to be supporting you and helping you with this project is super important. Deliberating whether you want to show market wethers or do you want to go the breeding route and show some ewes, anything like that. But it's important to go into the sale or the breeder's facility and know what you're looking for and have that definitively figured out, because if you don't, it kind of leaves room for you know, an undecided factor. You go into a barn and instead of just the wethers to pick from, you've got wethers and ewes to pick from, and that makes your selection criteria a lot more open. But we should narrow it down first so we have a better idea of what we're trying to accomplish. You know, thirdly, what breed? Are you wanting to show a crossbred, or do you have breed divisions at your fair and you're trying to be a little more competitive in that breed division and you want to go with a purebred? There's nothing wrong with either one. Some people prefer to go the purebred route so that they can have a better chance of getting a banner than they would, you know, with maybe the crossbreds, or if you do have a breed show, you narrow it down a little bit so you have a higher chance of making it to the top of that breed division. So identifying if you're interested in going that route and going the purebred route, or if you're okay with sticking with the crossbreds or a commercial side of things, a commercial ewe, for example, something like that. But again, narrowing down what you're looking for and where you want to be successful in the ring. How many lambs are you going to go home with? This is a really important one. I see way too often families make a call. They think sheep are easy and they can go home with one and have a successful project. And in some cases that works out. But man, I would really encourage you to reconsider that if you're thinking just a single lamb. If anything, buy a buddy lamb. If you're not going to, you know, showing a market lamb and a ewe, so a wether and a ewe is a great option, because then you can capitalize on both the outlets, having your market project, but also having a breeding project. But biggest thing there is you can feed too. So these are very flock oriented animals, right? Naturally, they travel in flocks and together, and they're very social with that being said. So if you have two at least in a pen together or being raised together, I can promise you they're going to eat more aggressively. They're going to perform better. They're going to gain weight better and more efficiently, and they're going to be happier. They're going to stay healthier. When we isolate a flock-oriented animal naturally, we can start to see a lot of things take a turn for the worse. So even if maybe you don't have the budget to go out and spend, you know, a bunch of money on your wether and a bunch of money on a breeding ewe, just focus on your market project then, if that's the route you want to go. And then if you can find, maybe that breeder has a bum lamb he can send you home with for a cheaper price, or a commercial producer has one they'll let you take for a cheaper price. So there's ways to go about it, but just try to have more than one so that you can ensure that they're performing to the best of their ability and they're more comfortable. And then, of course, what age do you need to fit your show and the weight limits? So knowing those weight limits ahead of time is super important. In my area and what I'm seeing across the country, we are starting to see sheep show at an older age, because with an older age comes more maturity. With maturity comes, stouter features. So more bone, more muscle development. They're filled out more. Because I remember when I was growing up, we were showing lambs, or my friends and siblings were showing lambs at just a very young 5 to 6 months of age. And those things were a lot greener and skinnier. And I don't know that they ever reached their full potential because they didn't have time in that short 5 to 6 month period. So I guess what I'm getting at is more and more, and as time goes on in the show industry, we are seeing older sheep being shown. And it is important to check and see if your county or show, whatever your goal is, has an age limit. But I am seeing more and more sheep being sold or being shown at that 8 to 10 month old range, for sure, for the county type of scenario, and sometimes even older for some of the more competitive majors and state shows and things like that. So that's a good conversation to have. Obviously, like I said, with your show family, with your team, whoever's going to be backing you in this project, but also with your breeder, and explaining your goals and all of these things that we just talked about to your breeder or whoever you're making a purchase from, so that they're aware of where you're trying to get to as well, and they can help align the correct animal with you, so that you can, again, set yourself up for success from the very start. So the quote at the bottom is one that I love. Don't make a 5-minute decision on a 6-month commitment, right? We have these animals for at least 6 months. We're going to be caring for them, putting more time and money and effort into them. So don't make a 5-minute decision on something that's really going to set the stage for how successful you are down the road. So here's some more things to consider, okay? Before you, or when you're prepping to make that purchase or go into a sale, here are some things that we'd recommend you do ahead of time. So take the time, go to the sale a few hours prior. And even if you're going to a private treaty, you have access to a breeder who's going to let you choose an animal off the bat and not going through a sale ring or something like that. Go a little bit early and give yourself some time to look. You're going to want to get the lambs out. You're going to want to move them. You're going to want to brace them. And when you are moving them and bracing them, obviously you're visually evaluating that animal, right? You're looking for ideal selection criteria, which we'll talk about here in a minute, and what that might be. But essentially, if you don't feel comfortable with what you're looking for, even after we have this discussion, it's best to find someone who does. So whether that's a fellow exhibitor that's maybe been doing this for a few more years than you, or a 4-H advisor, or an FFA advisor, or the breeder, if you want to lean on the breeder to set you up with an animal or recommend which animal might be best for you. Find someone who you do feel confident in helping you make that decision. More important things, get the lamb's current weights, ask the breeder, how previous lambs bred the same way with the same genetic profile, ask how those have fed out in the past. And where we're getting at with that is, do those lambs finish out a little bit earlier? So you could maybe go with a younger lamb with that genetic profile, or vice versa, do those lambs genetically tend to finish a little later? And we need something that's going to finish quicker for your show. So those sorts of questions, genetics dictate so much in these projects. I mean, it really does lay the foundation for what we're going to accomplish and feed down the road. So asking those types of questions about genetics and about how those bucks and their progeny feed out, that's super important to do. And then we've discussed this kind of already, but buy the right size, buy the right age for your fair. So again, I can't stress that enough, because that's part of the selection process that's going to make or break you. If you choose a lamb that's too young, you're going to be the person or the exhibitor that is having heck with their project throughout the duration, because they're behind on weight constantly. But it's really hard to push one when just naturally they're too young for that show. It's doable. We've had a lot of sticky situations that we've helped customers get out of and make minimum weight. But you do want to try and have as seamless of a project as possible to relieve stress for you and relieve stress for the animal too. And then if they're too old, obviously you could have issues as well when it comes to holding and they may peak too early, and then they plateau and get stale or wrung out. And, again, there's situations that we've helped customers avoid those situations, and we help hold them and keep them fresh, and they show and they do great. But again, those are kind of two opposite ends of the spectrum that you may not want to be on. You want to land right in the middle instead. So finding the right size and age for your fare is super important when you think about it that way. And then lastly, don't buy the one you like just because they're cute. I know if you're a first year exhibitor, or you just have a big heart like me, I flock to those ones that are just cute. We were tagging calves today, and I thought this little calf with a painted up rockle face was the cutest thing in the world. And my husband's like, he's a piece of crap. So, the cute ones aren't always the good ones. They sure can be. Good livestock come in all packages, sizes, and shapes. But you want to buy the one who has the most ideal selection criteria, not the lamb who just has a cute face, right? So what is that selection criteria? What are we looking for here? We put together this chart that is available on our social media pages too. If you're taking notes and you don't have time to write all of this down, you can go to our Facebook page, Show-Rite's Facebook page, or our Instagram page, and find this graphic. But we've lined out some selection criteria for you and separated it into some categories. Now, when I'm evaluating livestock, or if I'm judging a show or just walking through a breeder's barn, a lot of times by bystanders, I'll get asked, what's the number one most important criteria, Mari, when you're making a selection? And you know what? There's not a number one. There is a combination of things that we look for as judges or as evaluators. We want adequate structure. We want adequate muscle. We want adequate stoutness, adequate balance, and good freshness. We want the combination of all 5 of those qualities, not just one or the other. So with that being said, it's almost like you have this checklist of qualities, and you have to go through and ask yourself, are they good enough? They may not be the heaviest muscled lamb in the pen that day, but do they have indicators of muscle that they can grow into it, like width of skeleton through their chest floor, or from behind as they stand square? Are they really wide over their 13th rib? They may not have that really upstanding rack right now when you go to make your selection, but is their rack nice and square? And does that squareness continue back to their loin? So again, you don't necessarily need the lamb or the animal that has the ESTs, as I call them. So they don't have to be the heaviest muscled. There's the EST, the heaviest muscled. They don't have to be the stoutest. There's your EST, the stoutest boned. But we do want them to have a little bit of everything, okay? So again, I'm not gonna, just for time's sake, I'm not gonna break every single piece of this down, but you're looking for a lamb who stands square. So what that means is their feet and legs point straight, like this, instead of like this, which I call, this straight is north and south in my book. This way would be east and west, or they toe in like this. So we want their feet and legs really square. I told you to get them out and walk them, right? When you get to the sale. So when they are in motion, are they flexible? Are they almost meeting their stride? So does their back foot set down where their front foot left off? Their spine is another way to measure their structural capabilities or their flexibility. Because if they start to maybe hump up in their spine, like when they're on the move like that, that's an indicator that something's off. It's probably the angle of their shoulder, could be the angle of their hip too, but something's off and it's pulling that spine too tight. They're not able to stay level and on the move and flexible. So indicators like that, when they're in motion, that's a huge telltale sign that animal is probably not put together as perfect as we'd like to see. Stoutness, we talked about muscle a little bit, so I'll skip over and go to stoutness. That really is referring just to their features. So anything from the shape of their jaw and their skull, you can tell a difference in a lamb if you put them side by side and facing forward in their jawline. Is one narrower than the other? That's an indication of stoutness. Their foot and bone is the easiest indicator of stoutness. How big are their legs? And then rib shape is another indication of stoutness. So we want a really nice round rib cage versus one that's more concave and flat like this. We want that barrel shape. We want that cylindrical round shape. And it's easiest to see that if you get on top of the lamb and evaluate them looking down on them. You can see either round shape or it flattens out a little bit like that behind their shoulder. So rib shape is another indication of stoutness. Then balance. Balance is kind of just how pretty are they? Do they blend their pieces together, the pieces of their skeleton together nice and smooth? Are they nice and tall fronted, long necked, level down their top and down their spine like we talked about? Does everything just kind of fit together, or does it look a little bit more unproportional? Maybe they don't attach well in their neck set, so they have kind of a U-shaped neck, as we call it. Things like that. Those are indicators of balance. And so you basically just want to ask yourself, how pretty are they? Do their pieces, does their skeleton fit together? And are they proportional to each other? And then freshness. This means, when you go to the sale or the breeder's place, and you should brace that lamb just to be able to handle them like the judge would. And you should be feeling for this freshness and for that muscle tone and the muscle shape. And just kind of evaluating what stage of the game they're in. Are you feeling more squishiness than muscle? That's an indicator that they may be too fat or just genetically don't have the propensity to develop muscle. So you should be handling for that stuff and going through your mind about what you're feeling and what that's an indicator of. Okay. So I know that was kind of a zooming through the selection process, but for time's sake, we're going to keep rolling. But again, you can find this on our social media if you're interested in taking a screenshot of that. So you've made your project decision. You've figured out, I should mention too, you guys are being really quiet. So if there are any questions, please feel free to type those in the Q&A or the chat, okay? So you've made your selection, you have your lambs, and now it's time to bring them home, right? So what should your housing environment look like? Here's just a few basic things that you need to check off your list as you bring them home. The biggest thing for sheep, guys, is they need a dry environment. They need low humidity. So those two kind of go hand in hand. They need to be out of the wind. They don't like, a draft or some sort of ventilation is a better way to put it. Ventilation is important, but we don't want a drafty barn. We don't want a barn where wind comes through a lot. You're asking for some sickness or illness if that's the case. And then a communal setting. So on the slide, it says amongst their friends. So, a bigger pen for 2-3 lambs to be in together. That's fantastic. Or if you have individual pens, as long as they're next to each other or, across the aisle from each other so they can still see their friends. Again, these are flock-oriented animals. So having a communal setting is really important for them. So an example pen size, 10 by 12 is a great size for just we call it a day housing, which means that's kind of the area we would lock them up during the day in the summer to get them out of the sun, keep them in a cooler temperature. Maybe you've got some fans hung up in there. So to keep them comfortable. And then we always put a 12 by 20 self-exercising run, which means when it cools off at night and for the duration of the evenings or the nighttime, they have this larger run area that you can turn them out to where they can do some self-exercising. They can get out and stretch their legs. They just have more room. So that's kind of just some examples for you, but there are a lot of options, facilities that work that aren't in this 10 by 12 and 12 by 20 type of scenario. You really, we think about facilities across the country, and so often we get caught up in trying to make it fancy, but really it doesn't have to be fancy at all. It just has to be functional. So it has to be efficient and functional for you and your outfit and your lambs to keep them comfortable and keep them dry and keep them with their buddies. So one common question we get is, what type of bedding do you throw in there? Do you recommend? We always recommend shavings. And again, it's super important to keep those clean. and keep them dry. So I always say if it looks dirty or if it looks wet, we need to get those things out of there. So cleaning should be in your daily routine, morning and night. It's pretty easy to maintain that if you kind of go through there and pick morning and night, or if you want to do like an every other day thing where you completely clean out the pen, you know, you're scraping down to the concrete or to the dirt, whatever you've got, every other day, whatever it takes or whatever works best for you, but keep that area clean so that they stay clean and so that we don't have pathogens or bacteria building up in their environment for them to breathe in or consume somehow and get sick with. So keeping it clean, keeping those shavings dry, super important. Now, one thing that I'll mention now while I'm talking about shavings, because I'll forget down the road, is if you ever see your lamb eating those shavings, you're going to want to probably find a muzzle. Now, muzzles don't have to be as harsh as they sound. There's plenty of muzzles out there that allow the lamb to drink through them. And that's especially important because they need to stay hydrated. We need to have access to water through those muzzles, but the muzzle will keep them from picking at those shavings. And what we see when they start to eat the shavings is they'll eat less of their nutrient dense feed that we need them to consume. And they might get bigger bellies. So they might bloat, or they might just get kind of wasty in their lower 1/3 and in their belly. So if you do start to see your lambs, it can happen out of boredom. It can happen because they're looking for some extra fiber. They may just start picking at shavings. So if you see that, go find you a muzzle that they can drink through that you can put on them anytime they're not eating, really is what you're trying to do. Okay. All right. So the next point, you want to get all the lambs on the same vaccination protocol. So what are some vaccinations that are essential for these lambs to have? Would be overeating disease and polio. So those are two things you definitely want to ask the breeder if that lamb has been treated for, or as you bring them home, do you need to treat them for that? And you can work with a veterinarian to get that figured out. But it's important to make sure the lambs have been treated for the same things, because when we bring, it's just like going to school. When you go see your friends at school, they're bringing you germs that you're not used to at home, and you're bringing them germs from home that they're not used to. So that's when we see outbreaks or colds and flus spread like crazy, is when we commingle like that. And it's the same for livestock. Okay. So when we commingle a lamb from one breeder and a lamb from another breeder and another from another breeder, we're bringing all sorts of new bacteria and new sickness together. So it's important to get them on the same protocol. And then lastly, getting on a deworming program. A consistent and routine deworming program is essential to keep these lambs performing correctly. We recommend once per month, but of course we're not veterinarians. So I'd encourage you to reach out to your vet and find what they recommend if you have a veterinarian that you work with closely. And I'll be honest, some vets come back to me and say, Mari, you don't need to be recommending that these kids do this once a month. That's overkill. And they're right in a sense. I recommend once per month because I take a much more proactive approach to feeding show animals, because I expect these show animals to perform at a much higher level than I do our commercial side of things. So for example, our commercial cattle don't get dewormed once per month, but our show calves do. And it's, again, a proactive approach to make sure that never at a point in time are these animals competing for nutrients with internal pathogens or internal parasites, excuse me. So it's a preventative approach. And the way that we try to avoid resistance is by rotating between a clear and a white dewormer. So really all that means is they're different active ingredients, and those different active ingredients will target different parasites. So one month we might use Ivomec, the next month we might use Safeguard. But that's kind of our system, is once per month and rotating between those clear and those white dewormers to hit the different parasites. I saw a few chats coming in, so I'm just going to check that really quick. Hang on. Okay. Okay, so Susan put a nice comment in there about deworming and how it might work for you guys' area, and that's fantastic. Like I said, I'm not a veterinarian. I don't make these recommendations. This is from personal experience. This is what we personally do. What I know Cooper personally does at home with his sheep. So again, it's best to get in line with your veterinarian on this and find their recommendation and follow their protocol, because yeah, every region is different. And Susan brings up some good points there. So feel free to read her comment. Essentially, guys, you just need to get on a program, whatever your vet recommends, and roll with that. So Melissa, you asked what's the difference between a clear and a white wormer. So like I said, those are just different active ingredients. They're going to target different parasites. If you think about almost like herbicides, right? Like if you're going to spray some weeds, there's different active ingredients in those herbicide products, and those different active ingredients can target different weeds. So if you're going after a grass weed versus a leafy weed, or what, I'm forgetting what they call them, but they're just targeting different things, if that makes sense. Okay. We'll keep rolling. So that's kind of what your home environment should look like, some daily or some general management in terms of, yeah, those vaccinations and that deworming. So then it's time to start working with your lamb. Even from the day that you get your lamb home, you should start at least building that trust with that lamb. You don't need to jump right into halter breaking, but you should jump right into building trust with that lamb. And how do we do that? Really, guys, it's about being patient with them. It's about taking time with them. So the best way that I encourage this is you as the exhibitor should always be the one to feed them, because this creates a reward-based type of, they associate you with feed, basically, is what I'm getting at. So you're bringing them a reward. You're bringing them a treat. It's that feed. It's that grain they love to eat. So, yeah, you should be the one feeding them every time. And then after you get done feeding them, I always tell the kids, just flip over a 5-gallon bucket in that pen while they're eating and sit on it. And you sit there nice and quietly and calmly. And it's going to feel weird at first, but you just watch them. You just hang out with them. You get to learn their personalities. And eventually you let them come to you. Sheep are very curious animals, and eventually they will come to you. They're probably going to finish their feed first and work through that, but then they're going to start sniffing around you. And at first, I tell the kids, just kind of sit still and let them sniff you out. Let them kind of figure out what you are and what you're doing in their pen. And the next day when they come up to you, maybe try reaching your hand out and let them smell your hand and let them know that you move and you're a physical being. And slowly you should be able to start, every day you can start doing something different. If the day after you put your hand out and they are sniffing all around you, try petting that lamb. You can try moving in when they're eating and petting on them and rubbing on them when they're eating. But make this a nice and easy and patient and calm process for these lambs. If you try to do this and you try to force them into a relationship with you, which means instead of sitting on a bucket and letting them come to you, that means you're overbearing and you run up to them and you chase them and you halter them without letting them come to you, you're going to have a much different experience with your lamb, and you're going to have a much different bond with your lamb. They're forever going to be scared of you or intimidated by you. Instead of, through this slower, calmer process, you're building trust, you're building a relationship where you're on the same playing field, and you're kind of developing a mutual respect for each other. So it's important for that first step to take it nice and slow, give them a chance to adjust to their new home, their new environment, and to you especially. So take that slow and be patient with them. The second part of breaking is actually catching the lamb. And this can always be kind of a circus, right? The most important piece of advice I can give you for catching your lamb, though, is to do not chase them. Like I said before, if you chase them right off the bat, it can create some bad habits. It puts a bad taste in their mouth. So again, you want to get to the point where they let you, or they come to you, and then eventually they're not afraid of you and they let you walk right up to them and pet on them and rub them. And that's when you can, catch them very, very easily. But in that beginning stage, when you maybe don't have that relationship totally figured out, using a catch pen or a smaller area is the best advice I can give. So that may look like someone following you in with an extra panel and just kind of getting them in a corner so that they don't have room to run around and you can easily get a hold of them without chasing them. Or if you do have a catch pen, even better. But using a small area so that you're not chasing them and they don't have room to run away from you, that's going to start breaking the habit of sheep getting loose in the ring right off the bat. That's one of the things I see a lot with young kids showing, and even older kids too. There's lambs who learn early on during this catching process and this halter breaking process that they can get away by running away, and they'll continue that for the duration of their life. So definitely try to get them into a small area. Don't chase them. Don't make it a game. Just get the job done. And then of course, keep those lambs near each other, right? So like we've talked about, they're communal, they're flock oriented. So important to keep them surrounding each other. And then you can, once you have them caught, you can put the halter on. And of course, we want to get to the point where we show without a halter, but it's important to start the training phase and kind of halter break them first before you get there. So I always encourage you to break them to the halter, and this will help you in the leading process as well. And then later down the road, you can start practicing showing without your halter on. So the next thing we recommend doing after you've built the trust up, you've caught your lamb successfully and quietly and calmly, is they've got their halter on, right? So then we recommend tying to a panel. And again, this means with their buddies. So don't do this where you put a lamb and isolate him by himself. You want to make sure he has his buddies tied up next to him. But this is basically to help us kind of train them, just really train them to the halter, train them to being kind of messed with a little bit, being handled really. But you're going to tie them to a panel. You're going to sit there with them. You never want to leave these lambs unattended while they're tied up like this, because lambs have a funny way of getting themselves in sticky situations and could injure themselves. Or get all twisted up in their halter and their lead. So you want to sit there with them while they're tied up. And while you're sitting there, it's a great time to start practicing squaring their legs up, setting them square so that their feet are how you want them to be when you're going to be in the show ring and when you're bracing. That also helps them get used to you having your hands all over them, right? And kind of picking their feet up and maybe doing some things that isn't natural for them. So this is just a good time to, again, continue building that trust. But we just recommend doing this 10 to 15 minutes per day. It doesn't have to be a long time. But again, this is kind of training them to be handled. So once you've done that for a solid 4, 5, 7 days, you can start to try and lead. Okay. So this is again with your halter on. And I always recommend starting this process with 2 people. So one person's on the halter, obviously, and that should be you, the exhibitor, but then maybe mom or dad or brother or sister are following behind you. And when that lamb doesn't want to continue with forward motion, they're just putting some light pressure on the dock of that lamb and asking them to continue moving forward. So that lamb doesn't get in the habit or thinking that with you on the halter or at his head, he can stop whenever he wants to. There's someone there continuing that forward motion and pushing him forward. So again, these are all kind of preventative steps to help avoid sticky situations down the road that I see a lot in the show ring, which would be lambs getting away and would be lambs who don't want to walk forward. So this training process is trying to set you up for more success from the very start. And then of course, like once you get them leading and forward motion, you always want to end on a good note. So if you have a really good 3-minute session leading your lamb forward, end it there. It doesn't have to be long in the beginning. It's all about just having a positive experience and getting them to do what you're asking them to do. And then you can call it quits. And maybe the next day you go for 5 minutes instead of 3 minutes. It doesn't have to be a long process or a long duration. It has to be an effective one. Okay. So once they do what you want them to do, go ahead and put them up. That's reward-based type of training. And then lastly, once you've got them leading well, respecting the halter, you guys are, really vibing good. You've got a good relationship going. Then we can remove the halter and try to lead with just your hand, right? Like we would show them. So you always want to walk on the left side of the lamb. You want your left hand under that lamb's chin, right hand on the back of their head. And I'll show you some hand placement pictures here in a second. And then of course, if your lamb resists, you take that right hand that's behind their head, reach back to their dock and push on that kind of button on their butts, and ask them to move forward. So that's kind of the process broken down into 5 steps. And that process could take you 2 weeks. It could take you a month. It kind of depends on all on that first step of building trust with that lamb. And once they trust you, they're going to be more apt to do what you want them to do or what you're asking them to do. So I told you I'd show you some hand placement. Here's some really good examples of, when you're bracing them, you can see how these young ladies here in the middle, their hands are right underneath, or they're kind of around their heads, but right underneath their ears or their jawline, and they're pulling that lamb up, right, as they're pushing into that lamb and bracing. So that's kind of where you need to be for bracing purposes. I don't have a good one here on leading, but like I said, your left hand should be under their chin and your right hand on the back of their head. And the really, really good showmen will eventually not have to keep that right hand behind their head. They actually carry it down by their side. That shows more control. That shows more expertise, more confidence. So that's a good goal for you if you want to do better in showmanship this year is, don't always have your safety net of that hand behind their head. Try carrying that down by your side. Okay. So here are some basics of bracing. We talked about basics of braking and leading, but here are some basics of bracing. So bracing is essential for our lambs in the show ring. It's how we exhibit muscularity, their build, their skeleton, balance. It's how we see their skeletal design and their balanced look. So bracing is so important, and to know how to do it correctly. The best way that I guess we've learned how to brace lambs or teach lambs how to brace, vice versa, is to put them on a stand. So your stand that you typically will be working, leg wool, just your typical lamb stand, put them in there and you get up there with them. And you want to kind of push that lamb with a backward motion. You're pushing into that lamb. And at first, if they don't brace naturally, they're going to step back, right? They're going to take a few steps back until they get to the edge, and you're going to kind of catch them, and they're going to feel the edge and they're going to push into you. And now they're bracing. Once they push into you and you feel that pressure on your leg, that's them bracing. Okay. So that's kind of the best or easiest way we found to start them with bracing. If you, like I said, if you do this once or twice, he's going to learn where that edge is and he's going to push forward for you pretty easy. One thing that I see kids do too often though, is they push harder than the lamb does. Or the other thing I see is they pull the lamb to them instead of pushing into them or letting the lamb push into them. When you pull that lamb forward, you completely shift his head and his neck, and he's not bracing at all. So his top completely flattens out, and we are not getting the muscle shape or the definition that we need. So don't over push, because he will quit on you. He'll quit showing. That's when they get tired. I mean, it is a job for them too. And that's why we practice so much and work up to bracing for a long duration of time. But one big thing is, don't overpower your lamb by pushing harder than he is. And second, don't pull them towards you. Make sure there's a mutual pushing going on against each other. Okay. So here's some more basics for you. Whoever's showing the lamb, like I said, when you're teaching them to lead or teaching them to brace, it should be you, the exhibitor, who's doing this, because the lamb needs to be comfortable with you, needs to learn with you. So you should be the one actively doing this. But basically, you're going to place your left leg into that lamb's chest, make him push into you, like we talked about, using the stand or on the ground, whatever you find works best for you. You're going to want to keep their head upright and ears forward, kind of like we've seen in the pictures of that hand placement. This young lady here in the picture does a nice job. And you're going to want to practice this bracing every day. Like I said, it's something that we work up to, them bracing for 20, 30 minutes in a class. That doesn't happen overnight. It's not something that just happens in the blink of an eye. That takes stamina, that takes endurance. So this is something you should practice every day. And again, it does not have to be a long process. You don't have to brace them for 15 minutes the first time you're working with them. In fact, we just want you to do it for 15 seconds the first few times you're doing it with them. So again, it's more about teaching them to do it the right way and calling it quits, and then maybe doing it a little bit longer the next day. But once they give you what you want, you call it quits. Again, you always want to end on a good note, and you don't want to tire them out. You don't want to give them a bad experience. Okay. So just quit when they do it right. That's kind of the process. And then you can do it daily to instill the consistency in them. So now we're going to move into the basics of nutrition, guys. So we're going to talk about water first, which is our number one most crucial nutrient. And then we're going to go into feeds as well. But again, any questions? This is kind of a natural break in this part of the presentation, guys. So feel free to type those in at any time. Otherwise, we'll keep cruising. But yeah, like I said, water, the number one most critical nutrient, something we all probably overlook and take for granted. I always say, if people ask me all the time, what's the magic, you're going to give us the magic pill today or the magic supplement today, right? Well, the magic, guys, I can't tell you enough, is water. Your lamb will not gain weight if they're not correctly hydrated. They will not develop muscle if they're not correctly hydrated. They will not have a strong immune system, won't stay healthy if they're not correctly hydrated. So it's kind of a domino effect. Once we take water out of the picture, we get left with, a domino effect of all sorts of bad things that could happen. So here's your points, or what you need to make sure you have at home is it available to them easily? Okay. So consider the location of the water. Do they have to walk a really long ways to get there? You may consider bringing that or putting it in a new location if that's the case. Can they reach it without straining? So can they reach it with ease? Just watch them go to it. And if they can find it easily and not strain when they're trying to get a drink of water, perfect. And then of course with sheep, especially because sheep are so clumsy, mitigate any opportunity for the watering system to injure their animal. So that's really, really important. Make sure your system or your setup is safe and your lamb is not going to get into a tight situation or where they opportunity to injure themselves. Secondly, make water fresh at all times. So for us right now, it's a big important process for us to be breaking ice during these cold months and making sure that for our automatic heated waterers, that those are still staying, performing well. We even have some situations where our automatic heated waterers get too hot because of the temperature gauge or whatever the reason might be. And so that's an issue too. We have to make sure it's the right temperature where they want to drink it. They don't want to drink something that's freezing cold or frozen over. And they don't want to drink something that's hot like tea. So making sure that it's fresh is a big thing. That'll make sure it's the right temperature. Consider the location again. So if you have an outdoor pen, is it sitting in the sun and just baking all day, every day? That's really not ideal in terms of temperature. So again, consider relocating that water into a spot in the shade so it doesn't become stale and overheated. And if you have a big watering source, for sheep, we just typically recommend bucket watering because it does consistently have us refill it. So that keeps it clean and that keeps it fresh and it keeps it a good temperature. But if you do have a bigger watering system for whatever reason, I always just tell the kids, fill it with smaller amounts more often. So that you have to continue to fill it. And again, that makes it clean, that makes it fresh, and it makes it a good temperature. And that rounds out the last one, leads me up to that one, which is make the water clean. Okay. Don't let your water get to the point where it's growing mold or bacteria on the sides of the container. You want to make sure you're rinsing that bucket and making it clean on a daily basis. Okay. So now we'll get into talking a little bit of grain. So Show-Rite offers, we're a nationwide company. We offer bagged feed, but we also offer what we call a premix or a Nutri-based product that allows customers like you guys and dealers like Delmarva to have access to our Show-Rite technologies by making their own feed so that you guys can use local grains, like Billy mentioned at the very start. So that's a pretty cool thing. And that's what you guys are getting through Delmarva Feeds is our Nutra-based product. And it comes with all of the same bells and whistles that our bagged Show-Rite feed would come with. And we've actually put the rations together for these guys. So they're using a very, very high quality formula and still capitalizing on everything that Show-Rite can do for you, which is an organic and chelated mineral profile. That just means basically that the lambs are going to have easier access to the vitamins and minerals we put into their body. They're going to be more easily absorbed by that animal, and they're going to be correctly utilized versus some of the inorganic vitamin and mineral profiles. They can, go in one end and out the other, to put it quite simply. So we want to make sure they're getting 100% utilization or as close as that as we can. And that's what we do with that organic and chelated mineral profile. Then the other thing that we capitalize on in our show feeds is we take overall health into consideration as our number one priority. Because if we can't keep these animals healthy, how do we expect them to perform like athletes? So you'll see on there, it includes the latest nutritional technologies from Alltech. What that's referring to is multiple gut health products to keep their rumens working correctly. So your sheep, right? They're ruminant animals, just so we're all on the same page. And that means basically that they just have a much more complicated digestive system. To put it simply, we have one stomach. Pigs, for example, have a simple stomach, one stomach. They're monogastric animals. But our sheep and our cattle and our goats, those are all ruminant animals. So they have 4 compartments to their digestive tract, which makes it more complicated and more susceptible to having digestive upsets and things like that. So we do put a complete gut health profile into this Nutra-based product, which goes into your product that you feed your lamb. So it keeps the rumen stabilized, it maximizes nutrient absorption, it clears any bad pathogens that might be in that rumen, it clears those out. And ultimately, the other thing that this does by keeping their gut and their rumen healthy is we boost their immune system too. It's a fact that for humans, 70% of our immune system is reliant on our gut health. So how healthy our digestive tract is and our stomach is. And I would venture to say it's probably the same for animals. If that gut's not healthy, if it's not performing right, we can see a turn for the worse happen really, really soon. So that's kind of what comes in that package and the health benefits for your animal. Ultimately, though, like I said, those are going to help your lamb perform more efficiently. So gain weight faster on a smaller amount of feed, going to help them maximize, where we prioritize our nutrients. So for muscle development, for weight gain, for performance, things like that. Okay. And it's going to make sure that all of with those vitamins and minerals, wool, skin quality, all of that is staying at the top of its game while keeping them healthy from start to finish. Okay. Now you'll see kind of the rations that we work with Delmarva on, and there's 3 of them, right? Well, we really want to hone in on the 19% creep and the 17% grower. So a creep feed is ultimately designed, guys, to first kind of help transition these baby lambs from mom and her milk to a grain. So most breeders will use a creep feed while those babies are still on mom and all the way through weaning, to again make that transition more seamless and help with performance and some extra shape and muscle tone into those baby lambs as well. But that's something that the breeder will typically be feeding. So it's important for you to be aware of, because you want to, when you bring that project home, you probably want to continue on, a bag or 2 of that creep feed or whatever the breeder had on hand at first, and help make that transition to the 17% grower, which is what I'm about to recommend for your project for the duration of their lifespan or growing phase. So you might want to bring a bag or 2 of that creep home and help make that transition more seamless, so we're not doing a cold turkey kind of switch and causing a digestive upset or something like that. So it's important to, even though you may not feed the creep for the duration, it's important to at least be aware of it and ask your breeder what that project was on prior. But let's focus on that 17% grower a little bit. So this is our standard, like the same formula as our bagged feed program that you would see across the country. It's a 17% protein. And with that, we formulated that ration to help express the genetic potential of that animal. So that means maximize muscle development, maximize frame, continue to put on an appropriate and ideal bloom and cover, so fat cover level. That's essential for good handling quality, right? And then, like I said, you've got the gut health protection in there in that product from start to finish as well. So love the concept of never having to switch off of a feed. This is the one that I would really recommend you use from start to finish. We've developed it that way that it can cater to those lambs for that long duration. We don't need a grower and then a finisher system anymore. We can kill two birds with one stone. And the reason I love that so much is because lambs are such finicky eaters that the minute you make a feed switch, you do take a risk of them not liking the new feed and going off or backing off a consumption or causing digestive upsets like we've talked about. So I love the fact that you can use this product start to finish. And then we tailor it by manipulating the amounts that we're feeding, the consumption amounts, as well as top dresses and supplements. Okay. But there's a lot of people who, guys, they just feed this product from start to finish and will go win their county fair with that. So you don't always have to use supplements. You don't always have to use top dresses. You're getting a lot of extra bells and whistles in this feed alone. But when I mentioned we manipulate how that lamb performs with consumption amounts, here's kind of a general guideline for you. 3.5% of their body weight is an easy way to think about it. These kind of facts or these amounts I've thrown at you are an easy way to think about it, but hear me out. If you're ready to take your project to the next step, if you're ready to be more competitive, I want you to think about something. I want you to think about this in a little bit different light. I want you to think about the growth curve of a lamb. So first, they start out, it's just like a growth curve of a human. We start out pretty steep, okay? And we're going up, up, up as babies. We're growing like crazy, consuming a lot of calories. And then, you hit the teenage stage where you're still growing like crazy and consuming a lot of calories, but then you hit adulthood. And for me, that happened around probably age 24. I don't know, when I started to see my nutrient content plateau and I was consuming the same amounts and consuming the same feeds, but the nutrient utilization was not going to lean growth anymore. And I started to deposit more fat, more softness to my skeleton, right? Our animals do the same thing. So nutrient demand is steep, steep, steep at first, and eventually they hit maturity. They start to plateau, and that's when we start to see some extra fat deposition happening. So I want you to think of feeding your lamb harder through this steep phase. Okay. So feeding them more. I basically want you to maximize consumption while they're young. And what that's going to do is set us up for more success down the road. It's going to set the stage for more success down the road. So I'd like to tell kids, honestly, the faster you can get a lamb eating 3 to 4 pounds of feed per head per day, the better. Because we're going to put more condition on them that way, which means more condition means we can start exercising sooner to develop more muscle shape, and we can start adding some higher protein supplements in sooner to, again, start shaping that cover. But we have to have the bloom first. We have to have some fat cover developed. So yeah, think of it as kind of a race to get them up to while they're steep and they need as many nutrients and calories as they can get. Try to get them up to 3 to 4 pounds per day per head as quick as you can, and continue that until you start to see, we're going to talk about how to handle them and how to measure their fat. So we're going to talk about that, but until you start to handle them and start to see that they have adequate bloom, they have ideal fat cover levels, and then we can start exercising and shaping that fat tone, but they have to have some bloom first. Okay. So yeah, this is the easy route, what you see on your screen, those feeding amounts. But if you want to be ultra competitive and you want to be the kid who rises to the top of your class for muscle shape and muscle tone of that wether, you might try to feed more aggressively at first. And then as they start to mature and start to deposit fat, you're going to have the extra advantage of being ahead of the game. And your lamb's going to have an extra 30 days of exercising and high protein supplementation to develop more and more muscle shape. So that's kind of two different avenues you can go. And I know that's probably a lot to process, but we at Show-Rite are always here to help you. So that's one thing that I do with my customers, and Cooper does with his customers, is we can help you guys work through that process and trying to figure out when to stop pushing that lamb at that 3 to 4 pounds, or if we need to push them harder, things like that. So you can always reach out to the Show-Rite reps, give us your situation, the weight, current stage, and pictures of your animals, and we can help you figure out consumption amounts. So the other important thing about nutrition and the basic of nutrition is to include some forage in that sheep's diet. So as we've talked about, sheep being natural flock-oriented animals, they're also natural grazers, right? If we were to see them in their natural habitat, they'd be out in a pasture picking at some grass and eating 24/7. So with that being said, we can't just feed them this very nutrient dense show feed or show grain. We have to have some sort of forage in their diet as well. So what does Show-Rite recommend with this feed that you're going to be using on your project, powered by Show-Rite, made by Delmarva? We do recommend both a grass and alfalfa in their diet if you can swing that. We don't like to fill this feed with a ton of fillers. So the fiber levels are adequate, but they are not super high. We want to fill this feed with more nutrient dense ingredients that are going to aid us in weight gain and performance, instead of those fillers that just act as a filler and fill our gut. We don't get a whole lot of nutrient value out of them. So because of that, that's why we recommend having the extra forage on the side of both grass and alfalfa. So how do you do that? How do you feed that? The easiest way to think about it, or the easiest way to do it, is just to keep a 5-gallon bucket of grass hay in their pen. When you see it's empty, refill it. When you feed in the mornings, you can refill it. However you want to do it, but it's essentially free choice, grass hay for them. But the 5-gallon bucket seems to work the best in terms of how to give that to them. And then for the alfalfa hay, we control that a little bit more. We don't want that to be free choice. We don't want to cause, we don't want to spike their protein too high and cause bloat or acidosis, anything like that. So think of it as kind of a bird's nest. So we say a bird's nest because mom or dad's handful could be a lot bigger than, the young lady, the exhibitor's hands. So a handful can vary depending on your hand size. But if you think of a bird's nest, we can all kind of picture what a bird's nest should look like, right? And what size that might be. So think of it as a bird's nest size and feed that amount of alfalfa once a day. Okay, so this is something that could vary based on the feed that you use, but based on the Show-Rite ration, we do recommend both a grass and alfalfa type of forage supplementation. All right, we're going to keep rolling, guys. So we've talked selection, some daily management. We've talked some nutrition. We're going to move on to exercise. Because like we've talked about, hopefully you get to the point where you've developed enough bloom and fat cover in your project that you can start exercising. So now it's like, what do we do? All right, so I'm going to start on the negatives. The 3 biggest mistakes that I see made with an exercise program on the sheep side is exercising too soon and not having that fat cover I've talked about. So if you think about it, if we start too soon and these lambs don't have that fat cover, they're always going to be skinny because we're always burning calories and we're always making them exercise instead of building that up like we need them to. So I see people starting too early and they stay skinny and green forever. I see them working their animals every day instead of every other day. The best way to think about this, and how Cooper always says it, is you have to let the muscle rebuild after you've torn it down. And part of the reason for that is because for sheep, we recommend very high intensity, short spurts of high intensity workouts. So we really do put that muscle through a lot, a very high intense workout. And we want to give them a day to recover. Okay. So an every other day intense workout program is ideal, but on those days off where you're not doing your intense program, you can still be practicing bracing and showmanship. That's considered exercise too, and imperative for your success to get that lamb shown right. So you can do some sort of exercise every day, but for building muscle and to truly capitalize on building muscle in an exercise program, You should do high intensity, short bursts, and every other day. And then that goes into the next point of not working them correctly, not doing the short bursts and high intensity. They'll do more like a marathon runner of long durations, but low intensity. So yeah, we've got to make sure that we're doing it the right way to build muscle. So you want to think of these guys as sprinters. Like I said, the marathon runners, they go far distances, right? But not as high as speeds. Think of a sprinter, they go a really, really short distance at a fast pace. So that's what we need to make these lambs develop ideal muscle shape as well. So as it says on the screen, to exercise a lamb correctly, we need high intensity and adrenaline. The adrenaline rush is key. That's going to help add to that muscle development. And we should get that adrenaline with the short bursts that we're doing, and if we're working them correctly. So you want to work hard, you want to work fast. There are several ways to do this. We'll talk about a few of them, okay? So honestly, the easiest is this reward-based exercise. And I start with this one because the next ones we're going to talk about take more specific equipment, like a treadmill or like a track dog. And not everyone has access to those things. I know that. So if you don't have access to those things, this is the best way to get that high intensity and adrenaline rush. Simply take them away from their pen and chase them back, let them run back. Again, it has to be at a sprint. If you can, like a quarter mile would be a great starting point. That's a great stretch for them to sprint. And then you would put them up. Okay. It's as simple as that. Make them run that one time and then you'd put them up. And then the next day you would do it again. And, some people do go for longer than the quarter mile, but that's a pretty good chunk of distance and a pretty good way for you to gauge the distance. But you do have to make them sprint. You do have to work hard and work fast. But if you don't have a treadmill, if you don't have a track dog, this is the next best thing. I saw a chat come in, so we'll check that out. How many hours should they be exercised? Good question, Sarah. So again, it's not necessarily, we don't want hours of exercise. To exercise for muscle, we want short spurts. Okay. This should take no more than 3 to 5 minutes. Okay. But it should be a very high intensity workout. Now, when you practice your daily, what I would call daily exercise, which would be your bracing and would be your showmanship, you slowly want to work them up to what it's going to take in a class. And even further than what it might take in a class to win, because you want to be over prepared. You don't want to be the lamb in class that shows up and maybe you've only practiced bracing or showing for 20 minutes at home, but this judge is having a tough call and he might take 30, 35 minutes to make his decision. You don't want to be the first lamb to give up, and that's going to sort yourself out of the competition. So for these types of muscle building exercise, you just need a few minutes. For the more daily, if you think of it as endurance, as stamina, for those types of daily exercises, like your bracing and showmanship practice, walking and leading, things like that, you probably slowly want to work them up to be able to do that for that 45-minute mark, just in case. But that varies on what size show you have, how many kids are typically in your classes. So, think back to your fair last year, ask an older exhibitor how long their classes typically last, and you can gauge off of that. But I'd try to shoot for 45 minutes. But again, you have to consider that's not going to happen overnight, right? They're not going to be able to perform like that just out of the blue. You have to work them up to that. So remember when I talked about basics of training, I was talking about a mere matter of seconds of having them brace, 15 to 30 seconds at first. And then you slowly over time, over these matter of 6 months, you'll work them up to that 30, 40-minute range. Good question. So the next way to get this muscle developing exercise is with a treadmill. And this is the most efficient, this is the best way, but I understand not everyone has access to one of these. So first off, we have some good friends over at Allen Show Lambs who make these treadmills in Oklahoma. Bar none, the best quality and piece of equipment. They've just figured everything out to make it so easy for you and so user friendly for you. So if you're interested in purchasing one, that's where we'd recommend you go. If you're going to make your own, there's some specs down there for you. You know, a single treadmill, you don't need a big, long or big, wide platform. You need it to have some variable speed between 0 and 6 miles per hour, 220 volts, 6 foot long, 18 inches wide, all that. So I do have people ask me, how would I make my own and what would it look like? So there's some pictures for you too. It's all sided in. There's doors on both sides. That's the safest. Like I said, Alan Showlams has figured out how to make these the safest and most efficient, but that's kind of what they look like. These lambs, their feet stand on the front platform. You can see that in this middle picture here, there's a square at the front of that treadmill. That's where their front feet stand. And we work their back feet to develop the muscle. So if you treadmill them backwards, so in a backwards motion, we are shaping their hip muscle, their inner thigh, and their lower leg. Okay, we're not getting any top shape benefits out of that. And again, this is a matter of minutes. This is 3 to 5 minutes on high intensity on that treadmill, walking backwards, and you're going to get more lower leg shape, more inner thigh, and more hip shape. Okay, now if you treadmill forward, you are going for, that's when you're trying to accomplish your really lean, athletic look. That's when you get more top shape development. You know, you harden their rack shape. And you can go for longer when you go forward. You can go up to 10 minutes, but again, that you got to work them up to that. You can't expect them to do that in one day or on the first day. So I know not everyone has access to these treadmills, but that's kind of a general idea of why we use them and how we use them. And yeah, so if you have one, use that thing, because that's the best way to develop muscle shape on these lambs. And again, this is another tactic that's used very commonly across the country, but not everyone has access to these. So you have to have a track and you have to have a dog and a trained dog for this type of scenario. So a track dog is another way to create high intensity and short bursts. You know, if it essentially, I don't have a video or anything, but essentially you have 2 alleys, your dog, or you have 1 alley where you put your sheep, and it's fenced on both sides so that the dog can't physically make contact. Some people put the dogs directly in with the lambs, but most of the setups I've seen, the dogs stay on the inside on the other side of the fence and chase that lamb that way. So that, yeah, again, it can't make contact, but I've seen it both ways. Sometimes those dogs are trained well enough that they can be in there with the lamb and not cause injury. But that's fantastic. I mean, that's where we really get the adrenaline rush, and a high intensity is when something is chasing that lamb, right? So again, just offering another way to do this. When we do tracks like that, what we do see is typically it's a great way to shape their underline. If you have a lamb that's kind of what I call hay bellied or big bellied, this is a good way to run that out of them. And we streamline that, get it more parallel, and get it more athletic looking. Okay. So then here comes into play those daily exercises that I talked about. So those 3 methods that we just discussed, the reward-based training where you take them out of their pen and let them sprint back, the treadmill and the track dogs, those are the ones you want to do every other day, and then let that muscle recover for a day. So no more than every other day, but these are what exercises you can be doing on a daily basis. Just putting them in their stand and having them stand there. That builds endurance. When their head is up and they are standing on their stand, that builds endurance. Walking them and practicing leading them. This is not only going to make them better, but it's going to make you a better exhibitor too, because you're going to get more comfortable with, you know, without that halter and with the grip on their chin, you're going to get more comfortable with that. So that's going to make you a better exhibitor as well as building their endurance and their stamina. Bracing, as we've talked about, that's not something they can just do the first time and do it for 20 minutes. You have to build them up to being able to brace for a long duration of time, 30, 40 minutes. So that's something you can do every day. And then of course, showmanship, right? Like I said before, you don't want to be the person in the ring whose lamb gets away from you, or whose lamb won't move forward, or whose lamb gives up on you. So practicing showmanship at home is super, super important. Those are things that you can do on a daily basis. Okay, when feeding, oh, got a question, sorry. So I'll focus on that for a second. Elizabeth asks, when feeding, do you feed them up or can they eat in a pan on the floor? That's a great question, Elizabeth. So I would recommend a feeding trough that you can kind of clip onto a fence. Just the reason being, it's again kind of all about creating the stature or the how we want that lamb to perform in the ring, and we want their head up, right? So you're not going to put their feeder so high that they can't reach it, but we also don't want them to have to bend down and get used to carrying their head down, eating out of a feeding pan. So, we would prefer having kind of a hanging feeding trough more so than a feed pan, but that's a great question. Okay, so just to wrap up exercise, guys, getting the correct finish fat to muscle ratio involves the following. Okay, so monitoring their cover. So again, this is going to talk about handling. Okay, and I'm going to talk about handling more in depth. This is leading us into talking about handling and how to do that. Adjusting their feed and exercise program. So in the process, as you're exercising, you should be handling them daily. And if you start to find that they're losing fat condition, they're losing cover, we need to probably exercise less, take a step back from our exercise program, or we need to increase feed consumption and increase calorie content. So that's where handling comes into play, and knowing how to handle and what you're looking for and how it can help you balance out this feeding and exercise program to make sure your lamb is really dialed in how it should be. And then lastly, you have to keep these things hydrated through the duration. That's essential. I've felt lambs who have fat cover on them, but they're not hydrated correctly. So they feel stale to me. They feel skinny to me, but it's just because they're dehydrated and they feel not good. They don't feel fleshy and soft. Soft's not a good word. They don't feel fleshy. They don't feel fresh is the best way to put it, I think. So those are super important things. And like I said, those kind of points lead us into our next topic of discussion, which is handling. Okay. So if it's your first year, you wouldn't know this, but the judge is going to handle your lamb and put their hands on your lamb, and they're looking for muscle and they're looking for fat cover. Okay. So I know that picture is really old. That's a really outdated picture. It's a really, really bad lamb. Not a bad lamb. It's an old school lamb that we probably wouldn't be quite as ideal in the show ring today, but it's just a picture. Okay. And it's just to show you kind of how to handle. Okay. So think of handling. You're going to stand over top of that lamb, just like the judge is doing behind that exhibitor. And he's got his hands kind of just like this, right? And he's using these 3 fingers, your 3 longest fingers, and he's going over the ribs, right? So he's at about the last rib right there, maybe a little bit forward, but he's kind of going in a circular motion and going down towards their forerib, and he's handling for fat cover right there. They're also going to handle down the top, but down the top, we're handling for muscle. This area over their ribs, we're handling for fat cover. So if you want to make a fist, I'll teach you how to measure that fat cover, what we're looking for. Make a fist with me. And if your lamb, as you're handling over their ribs like that, if they feel like the top of your knuckles like this, that's too skinny. Okay. That's really bony for me. Think of that as their ribs. And that's what you would feel over their ribs. That's way too skinny. Okay. We've got to push consumption, get some extra energy in their diet. But it's normal for young lambs to feel like that. I should preface too. Your lamb who you're going to bring home may be skinny like this, and that's okay. It's just because they're young. But as they start to get older, if you're 60 days out from show and they feel like that, know that you need to increase feed consumption and increase energy into their diet. Now, if they feel more spongy, like your forehead, like I can kind of move that skin around and it's really smooth. I don't feel any bone like I do on my knuckle, that's too fat. Okay. That's too much finish. They're overdone. So if that's the case, we need to probably lower feed consumption, increase protein, and exercise harder. Okay. Now, lastly, if they go back to your fist, if they feel like the top of your fingers while your hand is in a fist, that is ideal. Okay. That is what we want. It's not as bony as the top of your knuckles, You can still feel the separation of your fingers, which is essentially the separation of their ribs, but it's softer, right? And it's more filled in. That's what we're going for, okay? So I hope that helps you gauge what your lambs should feel like and how to handle for condition like that. Now, how do we handle for muscle? How do we do that? So the judge is really just going to take their hand and kind of use it flat like this and touch their rack, which is right behind their shoulder, and continue to move that hand back down their top to their loin. What you see the judge doing here in this picture is he's measuring what we call the hind saddle, or measuring the loin from the last rib back to his hook bones in his hip. So that's what he's doing there, but handling for muscle is much easier. You're really just wanting, you have a flat hand and you're really just wanting that muscle to jump up and meet your hand as you handle down their top. Okay. You can also handle their lower leg. So down in between their legs, that's another indication of muscle. So you want to ask yourself, as you're handling the muscle into their top and their lower leg dimension, is that shape square down their top? Is it fresh? Does it feel firm? Is their leg full in shape, or do you really have to search for that muscle? So that's kind of what you're looking for when you handle down their top, okay? Okay, we're at another kind of natural break in the presentation, guys. Moving on to one of the last topics. We've got 2 topics left. So if you have any questions, keep those coming. You've had really good questions so far. But the next topic, and the reason I thought it flowed well this way, is we talked about basic feed, their complete feed, right? The 17% grower. We talked about exercise and condition, handling condition, and how to read condition. And I've mentioned a few times, you're going to want to tailor their diet, or you can use supplements to tailor their diet and maximize muscle expression. So let's talk about some of those products and how to use them. Okay. I guess I'm going to back up before I go into product specifications. When you're using supplements, way too often, I just get blanket questions of people saying, what supplement should I use? And I always turn that back around on you and I say, well, what are you trying to accomplish? You have to know what that animal needs to find the right product or supplement to fix that need or fix that weakness that they have. It's really, really common, but incorrect, where I find kids will just feed this supplement because that's what the grand champion at their fair used last year. So it must be the magic pill and it must work for every single animal. But that's just not the case, guys. So you have to be able to identify your lamb's weaknesses, where they fall short, and then you can find a product that fills them in that hole or strengthens that weakness and can kind of mask that flaw. So always be sure to know what you're trying to accomplish with supplements. Typically with supplements, we're trying to add muscle or add fat, but there's some other little things we can tweak too, like their body shape, the roundness of rib that we talked about, the depth of body that they have. So we'll talk about those things and some of my favorite products on the sheep side, okay? So we're going to start with your muscle building products, and I'm going to highlight the 3 on the screen, which I think makes a great system. And these are the heavy hitters on the sheep side, the ones that we're really, really seeing a lot of success on a national scale with, would be Muscle in Motion, Starshine, and Right Time. So Muscle in Motion is a product that's more moderate in protein and higher in fat. So I love this product to use early with lambs, especially if you're jackpotting. And with jackpot animals, we show them earlier, so they're younger and they're still just kind of immature, kind of green. They don't have that fat cover, that bloom developed yet. So it's hard to make them look the part, but Muscle in Motion can help us do that. It's not going to burn fat or keep them forever skinny, because it does keep a good fat content level in there. It can be fed to those younger lambs who are still skinny without hurting them, okay, but still adding extra mass and extra muscle dimension. So Muscle in Motion is a great one to use during that jackpot season if you plan to hit up a few shows. If not, it's a great one to use just 45 days before your show to finish your lamb off. It's economically priced. It doesn't take a lot. I think, if I'm remembering right, we say 6 to 12 ounces per head per day. on that label, but you can always follow the feeding directions on that label. So love that product. If you're jackpotting, use that one early and use it with confidence. You're not going to ruin one by any means. So we love Muscle in Motion to not only give us the muscle, some extra muscle dimension, but also some bloom and some fat cover. Then with our exercise program, our coupled, so we've developed the bloom, we can start exercising then, I guess is what I'm getting at, right? So we're in the next stage of the game where we can start exercising and increasing protein a little bit since we have muscle or fat cover developed. That's where Starshine comes in. Starshine is going to feed leaner than Muscle in Motion. It's not going to add the bloom or add the fat cover that Muscle in Motion will. Starshine is going to give you more crisp muscle shape. It's going to kind of turn those tops and really create lean muscle development. So that product is also packed with gut health products, and they love to eat it. So we say it stimulates appetite. So that's kind of one we would use mid stage of the game. You would go, you'd bring your lamb home, get it on feed. If you're going to jackpot, you can start Muscle in Motion as early as you want. Then once they've got that fat cover developed, you can start to shape that with exercise and Starshine. Okay. Then the last product is Right Time. And here's a product that you could honestly, if you just are going for your county fair and you don't want to put a ton of time or buy these two other products like Muscle in Motion and Starshine, you're going to feed that 17% grower all the way through. And then 30 days before fair, you're going to start them on Right Time to finish them out. And that one is even higher protein than Starshine. It's a 40% protein and like a 1% fat. So not very high fat at all, but it's going to harden the muscle shape, give you some more rack shape down their top, some squareness and edge to their muscle down their top. It's going to tighten the hide. It's just going to firm them up. Okay. So like I said, if you just have the one goal of county fair and you don't want to spend all this money on supplements, but you still want to be competitive and kind of maximize your lamb's potential, feed it that grower all the way through, start your exercise program when you normally would, when that fat cover is developed, and finish them off 30 days before fair with Right Time. Or, you can fill in the Muscle in Motion and the Starshine and end with Right Time too. So that kind of makes a 3-step fantastic muscle building program. And that, like I said, these are the 3 most popular products on the sheep side for sure. So supplements can get a little tough just because they are kind of tricky to learn how to use and play with. But that's where we come in again. That's where you can write down me and Cooper's cell phone number and just shoot us a text and say, hey, wondering if I should start Starshine. Here's a picture of my lamb. If so, how much should I be feeding? Simple questions like that. We can help you manage those projects as much or as little as you want us to. But that kind of describes the protein side of supplements. Here's a couple other ones I'll just mention. We won't go super in depth on them. Right Factor is another muscle building supplement, super popular on the goat market, and it's a multi-species product, but what can kind of stall people on this product or stop them from moving forward with it, it's by far the best muscle developer on the market. However, it comes at a pretty penny, or comes for a pretty penny. It's more than $200 a bucket. So that's what kind of stops people from going that route, is just cost and dollar wise. So know that one's out there. If you are looking for the best product on the market and you are really upping your game this year, that's a product that can help you do it, but it just is more expensive. And then that last one you see there, Sculpt. Think of this one as a fat burner instead of a muscle builder. It's going to express more muscle, but it's because it's melting off fat. So this is a product not everyone needs to use. This is a product that we would use in a situation where we're showing older wethers. So let's say you bought a wether and you're going to show him at 10 to 11 months of age, and he's just naturally going to continue to get fat because, again, that learning or that growth curve and that maturity curve. Sculpt is one we can use to help keep him in shape without getting overly fat. Or maybe you're feeding a young lamb still in that 6 to 8 month of age range, and we just overfed and he just got too fat. This is kind of a product that could rescue you in that situation and bring him back to an ideal fat cover. So again, not a product that everyone needs at home, but just know it's available and it's out there. All right, I saw we got a question, so let me get that pulled up. I've always heard it. Okay, good question. So someone had told this exhibitor, don't exercise unless they're over 100 pounds. And I think whoever told you that and me are probably on the same page, just in the sense that that's an easier way to put it, is 100 pounds. Just blanket call it. Everyone knows when their lamb hits 100 pounds if you're weighing correctly. But the condition side, as I expressed, I think we mean the same things, but the condition is harder to tell. Like, not everyone knows how to read condition or what that means. So I think that whoever told you that and I are on the same page. What we want for you is just to not start exercising too soon while that lamb is too skinny for it. So yes, if your lamb has adequate fat cover and condition levels, then yes, I would say you can start exercising sooner than 100 pounds. But sometimes that doesn't happen till 100 pounds just because of maturity again. But if you feed harder, if you take my concept of feeding harder and making it a race to get up to 4 pounds of feed per head per day, and sometimes even more, I have some customers that feed all the way up to 6 pounds per head per day. And that's really pushing a lamb. That's a lot of feed. But they'll develop fat cover sooner, and yeah, they will start exercising sooner. So it does depend. It's a case-to-case scenario. But I think honestly, whoever had mentioned that to you and myself are on the same page with that rule. We just are phrasing it differently. We want your lamb to not get started too early, is basically what we're both telling you. Good question though. Okay, guys, so we're moving on to some fat and energy supplements. And when we're using fat and energy with sheep, typically it's if we have a really skinny and green one and we need to push them harder, faster, in a shorter amount of time, or if we are holding a lamb and we just need, like, we can't give him a ton of amounts of feed. We can't give him more than 2 pounds of feed a day, but he needs some extra calories. So we'll use energy in that scenario just to provide some extra calories without the mass of feed. So 2 options for you. We've got Stamina, which comes as a liquid. It's a true oil. And that one's super easy. It comes in a 5-gallon tub and it has a pump on top, and you just do a couple pumps per feeding. I find that sheep love the taste of that product. It's really palatable. So sometimes if we just have a finicky eater, we'll just throw a pump of Stamina on top for the palatability, not to add energy necessarily or develop fat cover, but mostly for the taste of it. So that's an awesome product. Love that one. Probably my preferred sheep fat supplement. But we also offer a product called Fat and Fluffy. And Fat and Fluffy, how it differs, it's still a very high fat product, but how it differs is in the form. This one comes in a powder instead of a liquid. What I find with sheep though is they just don't flock to it as well. They don't eat it quite as aggressively because it is a powder for whatever reason. That's just in my experience, what I've seen. So I do like the liquid and the Stamina a little bit better, but both of them could be a source for you to add extra fat or extra energy into the diet if you need to. But really, guys, like I've talked about, if you feed with my strategy of pushing them harder as their babies, you're going to develop more fat just off of your complete feed and consumption amounts without having to spend the extra money on a supplement like this. So know that they're there for you, and there are scenarios where we need them, absolutely. But if we feed them a little bit harder when they're young, we can achieve the same things. So the next one is rib shape and body volume. And so when we talked about selection criteria, we mentioned we want a round and cylindrical rib shape, right? So what if your lamb is a little bit more concave and flatter ribbed like this? How do we get that cylindrical shape? So the answer would be stretch. This is a pelleted product that really, if you were to take it out and let it sit, well, not let it, you want to pour some water on it first, but then you let it sit, it's going to expand to 3 times the size that you originally had. And that's how it works in the animal too. That's why it is expanding that rib cage to be like this. So that's a fantastic product to accomplish that if that's where your animal's flaw is right there in their rib cage. It can also help drop a flank if you have a lamb that for whatever reason is really high flanked or just doesn't have enough depth of body. Stretch is one that will help with that too. Appetite enhancers, we mentioned stamina. They love the taste of that, so we don't need to go over that again. The second one, or the one you see up top, that one called Accent, is a pellet. This is a good way to think about that one, in my opinion, is just think of it as a daily vitamin. It's full of vitamins and minerals and gut health products. So we're building that immune system, the strength of that immune system. They love the smell of this product, so it can improve feed intake. So if you have a picky eater that isn't maybe taking the transition of feed well, and you need to improve their appetite, this is a good product to go to just because they like the taste of it. So those are your two options if you just kind of have a finicky eater and need something to entice them to eat a little bit more. And lastly, some show day supplements. So I'm going to start on Exhale actually. Exhale is, think of it as a respiratory product. You could think of it as an inhaler for animals almost, but it's really targeting those lungs and oxygen throughout the body. So it's a menthol based product and it really just opens up the airways, comes in a tube. So it's really easy to apply. But why would this be important? This product is important on show day if you're showing in high heats, because again, once those animals get tired and get hot, they start to break down and they give up on you, right? So it's important to have this product because it helps increase their stamina, keep their endurance going. It keeps them breathing versus when they pant and start to hang their tongue out of their mouths, you know they're done for. So this can help them last longer in those heated situations. But another fantastic use for this product is at home. If you have a lamb or if you have a lamb who starts to develop a cough or a respiratory infection of some sort, this is not a cure-all. This is not what you treat them with, but it is an aid to help them recover faster. We use it all the time at home on pigs and cattle. Like I said, those are what I have at home. But for those situations exactly, or even if I have a pig who's just, our barn's a little dusty, there's not great ventilation in there. So we'll give that once or twice a week just to keep his system clear so that he's not accumulating all this dust in his system. And again, that dust could turn into a respiratory infection, but with Exhale, we keep his system clear and we never have to deal with those types of issues. So I love that product. It's one that's great for show day, for stamina and endurance, but it's also really good to keep at home. If you do have a dusty barn or a dusty environment, or you just have one who starts to develop a cough, that in tandem with the correct medication will help your lamb recover faster. And then Swell, man, this might be my favorite product we offer, favorite product on the market. It is truly a show prep product in the sense that you don't feed it every single day. You just feed this product 3 to 5 days before show. And what it's designed to do is help not only hydrate muscle and improve handling quality, which is essential for sheep, right? We just talked about how the judge is going to handle your lamb and what they're looking for. This is going to make sure they handle correctly. But also, if you have one of those lambs who, again, their rib shape is shaped more concave like this, we want to turn that rib out like this. Swell does that for you in a matter of days. So it's a fantastic product. I know I say there, you just use it 3 to 5 days. Well, we use it 5 days for those lambs who are made more concave in their rib shape like this, because we need more time to expand that rib cage to this. But we'll use it just for 2 to 3 days if we just want to improve handle on a lamb. So that's kind of why I give that variation. It's a product that comes in a powder and is designed to be mixed with water. So you could drench it. In sheep, that's the best way to administer it, is to drench it. If you're not allowed to drench, you could top dress it and just be sure you mix it into their feed so that they don't pick it out. I'll be honest, that product, the flaw of that product is it's not super palatable. We did not add a flavor because we've got it dialed in so good and it works phenomenally. There's no other product that does what this product does. We didn't want to add in a flavor and ruin the whole formulation and throw the whole product off. So it is a little bit bitter. That's because of all the gut health products in there to keep their system working correctly and not throw them off a feed or loosen stools or anything like that. So it's not super palatable, but it works and it's a safe product for your animal. So we'll take that over it being a little more palatable any day. But those are supplements, guys. I know that was pretty quick. Again, supplements are kind of a beast of their own, learning how to tailor them and how to use them correctly. But that's where we can come into play as the Show-Rite specialist to help you, okay? All right, we're on the last topic, which is leg wool. Leg wool, shag, whatever you want to call it, but those really, really cool champion lambs always have the leg wool. I very rarely see any lambs go through the ring without any sort of leg wool anymore, unless it's purebreds of some sort, and then it's okay. But to be, leg wool is important. It seems minuscule, and it is when you think about production purposes, it's pointless. We don't eat the leg wool. We don't need the leg wool on a carcass. But when you're talking about the show ring and we're talking about visual evaluation, it helps the lamb look stouter about their foot and bone, and it helps them look better balanced. So it is important, whether we like it or not. Leg wool is kind of an essential this day and age in the show ring. So how do we get that? First of all, they have to have the genetic ability. So their sires and their dams, they should have some decent genetic leg wool. And we have in most show sheep bred that into them at this point in time. But then it takes correct management to really kind of nurture that leg wool and bring out their full potential. So what does that mean? What do we do? So you're going to want to get in a pattern of every other day with leg wool management if you choose to go this route. And that means rinsing, okay? Rinsing every other day. You don't want to wash more than a couple times per week because we want to leave the natural oils in there, but a couple times per week is okay. We want to condition often, so that every other day mark. You don't need to do this daily. You can, every other day is completely sufficient. I know some people, even big producers and exhibitors who do this every 2 days. So you don't need to do it every day. We don't want to overdo it. Every other day is sufficient, but you should be conditioning. I threw out some examples of that conditioner, which might be just a simple mane and tail. Laser Sheen is one we know of, and Shag Swag is another one we're very familiar with. Those are just examples. You just need to find some sort of conditioner, leave that in there for like 15 minutes. What we're doing by leaving it in there is essentially helping work out any knots or tangles that are in there. And we'll actually kind of blow that while the condition's sitting in there. We'll use our blower and kind of take some of that extra moisture out of them while it's sitting there for the 15 minutes. Then we rinse it again, rinse that conditioner out, take the blower to them, dry those legs off. A good tip when you're working leg wool, way too often I see kids take the blower and they just kind of go up and down like this, right? Well, that just creates more tangles and knots, and we've got to comb through it and pull out more hairs. So to avoid that, just blow straight down. Just blow straight down their leg. That way you're not creating one hair to go every which way and creating all sorts of tangles, okay? What I get asked a lot, what brush or what comb do I like to use to work that leg wool? A wool card can go a long way. Those little square wool cards, that's usually okay to work hair, but the best for leg wool would be what we call a Smart Sensation comb by Sullivan's. It's different in the sense that it has more space between the teeth. It's not going to be so hard on the hair or on that wool, that leg wool. So that's what we like and what Cooper recommends for working that leg wool and brushing it out. And then the most important part is wrapping legs. Now, wrapping legs isn't something you have to start from the day you bring your lamb home. It's really something that you want to start when you start to see the lambs picking at each other's leg wool or picking at their own leg wool. When we need to protect it, okay? You've been rinsing, you've been conditioning, you've been working leg wool, but you're leaving it open, and now it's time to protect that work that you put into it. So I've got a few videos to show you examples of wrapping legs and what that means, but a lot of times I also get asked, where do I buy these leg wraps? Weavers and Sullivan's, they're to the point where they make some leg wraps. Some of the fabrics we don't love. Personal use, they're just either the Velcro's weak or the fabric creates too much moisture and humidity while it's wrapped. some of them just haven't worked for us. So what we found that works best is the mini horse polo wraps. So it's literally made for a miniature horse, but they're polo wraps for their legs. Or if you're familiar with Rule Company or Rule Show Sheep, I don't remember what they call themselves, but Tyson Rule and Amber Rule, their daughter Madison Rule shows very competitively nationwide. And Amber, the wife, she makes their own wraps. They were unhappy with the ones they were able to purchase through supply companies, and she just started making her own. They've kind of tweaked out all of the flaws that were happening with some of the other ones. And so they have a very high quality leg wrap and product, and she makes them all the time and sells them all the time. So you can look them up. Rule, Club Lambs Rule, I don't remember what their name is. I'm blanking right now, but Amber Rule is also on Facebook, and you can find her that way. That's the best way to get a hold of her to purchase some leg wraps for yourself. So let's explore these leg wraps. What does that mean? So I'm going to first show you, when you get your leg wraps, how you should wrap them or roll them up first, so that when you go to wrap, they're set up correctly for the lamb. So essentially what you need is the Velcro, which is ultimately how you secure it around the lamb's leg wool. That needs to be on the inside so that it's the last thing that comes out of that wrap. So here's an example of Phoebe Sanders rolling it up for you. So she's doing it by hand, which is nothing wrong with that, but I'm going to back up to the very beginning. Watch for that Velcro. You'll see that's the first thing she wraps. You can kind of, it's hard to see, but the Velcro is the first thing that she has facing up and that she rolls into. Now we'll go over to this other video. Madison Rule has this handy little tool that she uses to roll up her leg wraps. You'll see how she does it. But again, there's the Velcro. That's going to be down, folded down, and she's going to roll into the Velcro. And again, that sets you up so that your leg wrap is going to unfold the correct way on your lamb. Okay. So then how do we apply these to the lamb? So we've got an example of a front leg and a back leg, and you want to start down by their hoof. Okay, by their pastern. So Phoebe, we'll start with Phoebe again, and she'll show us how to do the front leg. But you'll see, well, she actually starts at the cannon bone and goes up. Maybe I have it backwards. Maybe for the back leg, we start down low. But you want to wrap from basically their knee joint down to their pastern. Probably doesn't matter which way you go first, up or down. And then she ends with that Velcro right there in the middle. And see, because she rolled it up so nicely, it came out perfectly. So I'll play that one more time for you, but there's not a lot of science behind it, guys. It's just a matter, you see that leg wool is all kind of shaped down as they blowed it dry. They've blown it down with their blower. And she's just working her way, started in the middle, went top to bottom, and ends up in the middle again. And again, this is just helping protect your lambs from picking. They'll start to pick and eat at their leg wool. Or other lambs will. They might accidentally step on it and pull it out if it's that long. So it's just protecting your the work that you put into it again. So here's Madison doing a back leg for us. She too starts in the middle, right below that hock. She's wrapping all the way up to where that top of that leg wool is, around the hock, and then she's coming down to right above the hoof wall, right around that pastern. And she's going to end up right in the middle, it looks like, again. Okay, so I'll play that one more time for you. Again, not a lot of science behind this, but if it's something new to you, you know, these are questions I get a lot. So it's easier to see it done than explain it being done, I suppose. Okay, that's it, guys. So with that being said, oh, you know what? I do have another video. Sorry, it's not it. Of them just unwrapping legs here. Again, no science to it whatsoever. Just want to show you how these girls do it. And they will leave these leg wraps on for like I said, every other day is the pattern that they get into. It's okay to reuse these leg wraps as long as you are making sure the leg wool is completely dry before you wrap them, because otherwise it creates humidity in there and could create fungus. So you want to make sure the legs are completely dry before you wrap them. And as long as those leg wraps aren't totally saturated with water or urine or poop or anything like that, if that's the case, you obviously want to wash those wraps, but otherwise it's okay to just shake the dust off and keep using those things day in and day out. Okay. All right, now that's it. So we're coming to a close here, you guys. What questions do we have? What content did I miss, or do you have questions about? Bring them at me. Pretty quiet. I hope that you walked away with learning something new today. As I've said before and preached, the Show-Rite team is in place to help you be more successful and help your projects reach their full potential. So please feel free to jot down my cell phone number or Cooper's cell phone number and shoot us pictures of your projects as you get them home and continue to grow them. And we can help you tailor their feed program to really unleash their potential and maximize what they can do. We can help bring that out in them. So feel free to holler at us as much or as little as you want, but you're in great hands with Delmarva Feed. And again, you want to thank them for putting this together for you guys. But yeah, it seems pretty quiet. So Billy, is there anything else you want to say or mention, or should we close out?
Well, I think you overwhelmed them.
Probably. And if I did, I'm sorry. There's so much to cover, so much to cover.
No, we greatly appreciate it. And for you guys that are still on out there, we're going to have a recorded replay of this. So if you would like to watch it again, or if you missed something, it will be available. Just get in touch with us at Delmarva Feed and we'll be happy to get it out to you. A reminder that next Thursday night, we'll be talking goats with Cooper Newcomb. And in 2 weeks from this evening, we'll cover cattle with Dennis Wilbur. So if any of you have any interest in those, you will need to register for those species, as we need you to register for each one individually. So just because you register tonight does not register you for all of those. I'm not sure if you have anything else, Maury, or not. I don't see any questions coming in, but
no, I think we're good. So thank you guys for your time. I know it went a little long. I'm sorry. Obviously, I must like to hear myself talk or something, but I hope you learned something from it anyways. And as always, holler anytime you need something or want some help, okay? Best of luck to you guys this year.
Yep. Thank you very much, Maury. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Have a great evening.